All right, hello. So I have read a lot of books recently and not reviewed them. This one I tried to read 2 or 3 times before succeeding. It's called Building a Second Brain and it's by a guy called Tiago Forte. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, I apologize. Remember everything, achieve anything, building a second brain. Well, that's a bit seductive, isn't it? Well written, cogent, and useful. David Allen. David Allen's the guy behind Get Things Done, who charges, 20 grand a day to sit with people and tell them how to be more productive. Forte's Ideas Really Work by Seth Godin, that one is. And then there's something from the Financial Times. I like the Financial Times. A detailed approach to using digital tools to feel less bombarded and have more time to think. What does it say on the back? A Wall Street Journal bestseller, a Financial Times Business Book of the Month, a Fast Company top summer pick. All good recommendations. Capture, remember, and benefit from your ideas and the information all around us. A unique, tried and tested approach to enhancing productivity, finding flow, and achieving your ambitions. Completely reshaped how I think about information and how and why I take notes. That's by Daniel H. Pink, author of Drive. I think I reviewed Drive on this channel, and To Sell is Human. Daniel H. Pink is good. He does a lot of good videos on YouTube as well. He's worth looking up. A survival guide to managing the complexities of modern life. Chris, Gilbow, author of the $100 Startup. After reading this book, you will finally be able to focus on what matters, connecting ideas and generating insights. And Laurie LeCompte, founder of Nest Labs. Completely changed my life. The tools and techniques it contains will improve anyone's productivity, creativity, and focus. That's by Ali Abdal, YouTuber and entrepreneur. And finally, an absolute must read by Ryder Carroll, author of the Bullet Journal Method. Right, so quite exciting stuff on the cover, but I wasn't super impressed by it. I expected something profound, and maybe this is why I wasn't super impressed by it. What I got was something very straightforward, very useful, not all that mind-blowing. If you've never ever taken time to think about how to capture your thoughts, then this is mind-blowing. But if you've been journaling for years, if you've written books, if you've done any of that stuff, you've probably got an idea of some of what happens in here. I mean, on the inside is a bit more recommendation as well. Or it may just be my memory of reading it. I mean, this guy's been hired by Microsoft to teach their people. Toyota for sure. Microsoft, that's about 50% maybe. I'm using recall here. And I read this over 6 weeks ago now. Toyota don't mess around, they know what they're doing. So if they hired him, well, then I'll read his stuff, yeah. It's essentially about externalizing your brain. So we all do it to some extent, right? We all use calendars. There's one on the wall over there, but I won't move the phone in case I mess things up. Okay. Yeah, I'm just recording on the phone here. So yeah, a calendar is a way of remembering something without it having to take up space in your brain. Tiago started doing this because he had an illness as a young man and nobody could figure it out. So one day he went to the doctors. I mean, it was in the States, and in the States, healthcare isn't really that great. It's about how much money they can make rather than how they can make people better. So why private healthcare is a shitty idea. Anyone listening? Anybody who likes the idea of that? Stay on track. Don't get political. So yeah, he got all his medical records and he started trying to organize them, and every time he learned something more he added it, and then eventually he started doing this on electronic tools like the phone. We all have these phones in our pockets, right? We can actually use them. As a result of reading this book, I did actually change how I use my phone. So I took all the apps apart from I took all the apps off of the main screen, and if I want to use anything I have to slide across like that to open it. Just those few seconds of pause stop you from just picking up the phone and staring at it unthinkingly. Or even if you have an idea, we're going to talk about that later in this book actually, Stolen Focus. Even if you have an idea, I need to look up this, I need to call this person, you pick up the phone and then for 5 minutes you're doing some other completely irrelevant time-wasting stuff, right? So as a result of this book, I made my phone a lot harder to use. The only things on the front now, accessible on the screen, are voice memo, for taking notes, and it can convert them to notes. So every time I have a good idea now or something, I'll just quickly speak into my phone and it transcribes it. It's written down so I can then refer back to it, which is an idea that came from this book. And there's lots of tools he suggests in this book, but you could just use your phone as well. Then he was a teacher. He was teaching English in Ukraine, I think he said. It might have been somewhere else. but all his students came to him with, how do I organize my knowledge? How do I do this? And he gave them the tools he uses. Basically, you take notes, you organize notes, and digitally it's a lot easier to do because you actually get things where you get apps, you get software where if you're reading something, you just highlight it, and then everything you've highlighted can be extracted. Then he recommends go back and read it again, highlight that. And eventually you take this much material that you've read, right? And you highlight it down, boop, 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 into a few key points. And you can remember a ton of stuff like that. Because don't forget, every time you're rereading and highlighting the relevant bits, you're processing. I actually prefer to read something and then part of my day sitting and doing nothing for an hour, which is mind wandering. Your mind needs to wander because that's when everything you've poured into it gets organized. Not with you thinking about it, that's when you get insights. Usually happens when you're not actually working. If you think about a lot of the scientific breakthroughs that are famous, while I was getting on a bus, I finally figured out the world's most difficult sum, or something like that. So take notes, have something with you all the time on which you can take notes, organize them into folders. It's really pretty straightforward, but I guess if you've never done it, it is quite groundbreaking. And even if you do it, I'd still recommend reading this book. It's not the world's most exciting or enjoyable read. I had to try about 3 times to read it. Eventually I got to it in between reading other books, and I thought, look, just put everything down and just read this. And I did. It was pretty good. Use apps. He talks about Taylor Swift, who's super successful, who's always on her phone, because every time she has an idea for a song, she puts it on her phone. She records tunes on her phone. She does everything on her phone. She couldn't possibly keep that all in her head. If you play an instrument, you'll be sitting there, you'll come up with something great, and unless you record it or practice it 20, 30 times over, you'll have forgotten it the next day. So basically, your phone is an incredibly useful tool, and you can use it as a notebook, and you should organize what's in your notebook, and then you should develop your own system for referring back to it. That's the main thrust of the book. The other thing is how to organize. So the guy used to work at the Apple store as well and was very good at getting people to move all their files from their old computer over to their Apple. And so he's got a bit of experience in that as well. He talks about boxes. If you've got a project, if you're working on anything, just get a box for it. It could be a paper file. It could be, any article you find that's relevant, any idea you have, just throw it in the box. It doesn't have to be organized until you actually come to work on it solidly, and then you can start organizing. Also, you'll come up with lots of things while you're working on project A that don't seem relevant. You edit them out, but keep them. Those he calls intermediate folders, I think, or intermediate projects, something like that. Packs, packs he calls them. Anyway, keep your packs and maybe just have it, in another folder where you can go through them occasionally, and there might be another project, another box, and you think, oh, this is relevant to that. I put that in there. I could use this for this. I could use this for this. So essentially, none of your ideas and none of your work gets wasted. You also have an archive. Once a project is completed, every bit of research you did in it, you keep it in an archive. And this can be in a physical box, which is how a lot of people work, that he profiles in here, or it can just be a folder on your desktop or on your phone. Okay, that's the main thrust of the book. So in terms of how useful is it? Well, if you've never tried organizing your ideas before, it's a 10 out of 10. If you're used to doing that kind of stuff, how many people, including myself, have carried a notebook around? I've done it loads of times, and every time you get a good idea, you just jot it down in the notebook. I started doing this as a teenager, and it's just a more advanced, digitized, do it on your phone, smaller than a notebook, don't need a pen, version of that, and there are apps to help with it. So yeah, that's the book. I'd recommend it. Building a Second Brain, a proven method to organize your digital life and unlock your creative potential, by Tiago Forte, who's written another book as well, called The Para Method. Simplify, organize, and master your digital life. That was his first book, and it obviously did quite well because, this one came on the back of it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll do another book review soon.